Hi, I'm Toym from the Philippines. I did the series of murals entitled Biyaheng Langit, Impyerno sa Daan, or Trip to Heaven, Hell on Wheels. This is a 100-foot mural that I did together with another artist, Kevin Raymundo, who is also popularly known in the Philippines as Tarantadong Kalbo. This mural is 100 feet long and covers 75 years of the history of the Philippines with regards to the Declaration of Human Rights. So I'll walk you through the very first mural here that you would encounter is a mural about the title. We used the style letters E figuras, which means that it's a little figurative, a little calligraphic, the way that we made the letters here. It's very colorful, and it also gives you an idea that we will be using the jeepney as a way in which we will contain all the narratives of this story. Okay? So if you move a little bit more, so you see the main titles here, everything's here. And this is the first 20 feet of the mural. The second 20 feet of the mural will cover the years 1948 to 1965. And so it starts with basically the Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, and you would see familiar figures of the imperialist fascist powers during that particular period. Germany, Japan, and basically some of the superpowers during that time, the Allies, the United States, the Philippines, and the USSR. So all of this figured into the Declaration of 1948 after the war of the UN human rights. And it starts here with an image of two presidents, particularly Rojas and Magsaysay, who eventually died during their term. Early on, after the Third Republic of the Philippines. You have a symbol of the CIA, which was also founded around that time. And if you would see like mythical beings, no, monsters, we call them aswang, no? It was one of those programs by the CIA that it was used, no, as a way to scare the population. No? During that time, there was a mounting dissent and rebel groups during that particular period, and the CIA has used this particular folk myths, no, in order to scare people. You'd see people, they would pick up certain individuals in which they would drain the blood, cut the head, put the guts out, some very, very graphic violations, no, in order for them to push their agenda in maintaining and silencing the population outside, no, of the cities. So we continue here. You have also the images of Quirino and Garcia, also Philippine president. But in this particular area, would be the particular interest of most of the human rights concern. And it is the start of the Marcos presidency in 1965. He defeated then President Justado Macapagal. And before that particular period, no, it was also the period in which all these presidents promoted the movement of Central Visayan population into Mindanao, no, to populate it. And this started the displacement of a lot of Filipino Muslims during that particular period. And the start of several atrocities that would also lead towards the term of President Ferdinand Marcos. And if you would see here, also in this particular period, we still have the capital punishment as the electric chair. During the Marcos particular period, it was characterized by corruption and aristocracy, and so we somehow gave you an idea. We put those symbols here of how that particular conjugal dictatorship eventually figured into Philippine history. So we move on to the third mural, which covers 1966 to 1985. 1966 was the first, it marked the first year of the Marcos presidency, and in the next few years, no, it was characterized by very extravagant spending and lifestyle, which was imaged by Imelda Marcos having the CCP complex on the top. We call it the edifice complex because there was a massive building, a lot of white elephants at the expense of taxpayers' money and money borrowed from foreign banks. Then, also that particular period, the poverty rate in the Philippines increased. And also, the peso started its gradual decline, no? At the onset of the Marcos presidency. Then, in 1972, after a series of events in the country, starting with the 1970 general strike, which is characterized as the first quarter storms, which happened January to March of 1970. This built up to the 1971 Diliman Commune, when the University of the Philippines, a state university, barricaded itself against the state forces. And all of this, there was a mounting dissent, or huge rallies, and the Plaza Miranda bombing, in which most of the opposition suffered during that bombing, was the trigger in which Ferdinand Marcos, on September 1972, declared the Philippines under a state of martial law. That was Presidential Proclamation 1081. Okay? So the country was under martial law. There was a continuous total disrespect of human dignity, lots of violations of human rights, and of course the corruption was unabated. No? And you would see here in this particular mural in this area, this represents 1974, because also during that time, no, when in 1968, the Communist Party of the Philippines and the New People's Army, its armed wing, was established in 1974. Around this time, the Moro National Liberation Front was founded, specifically because as a response to the militarization of that particular region. And there was this representation of the burning of Polo, which happened in 1974, and the continuous displacement of our Muslim brothers in the Philippines during that particular period. This represents, the folly of the family as imaged by one of their daughters, Amy Marcos, who happens to be a senator right now in the Philippines. There was this youth group, the Kabataan Barangay, in which she headed. And during that particular period, two very important and tragic episodes in the nation's youth history happened. Archimedes Trajano was one of those very outspoken youth that challenged one of the daughters of Ferdinand Marcos when she was delivering a speech. And after several hours, he was found beaten to death. And when one of Marcos's speechwriter, Primitivo Meares, defected from the government, went to the United States, has written the book, The Conjugal Dictatorship. It angered the Marcoses, so much so that after a few days, the son of Primitivo Meares, Poet Meares, was found badly beaten, killed, murdered, and thrown out from a helicopter, a flying helicopter here. This is also the period in which the three-line Manila happened. The fight between Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. There was a lot of international events that tried to cover what was happening in the Philippines also. It was all for optics, but at the same time, during a particular bloody period, you would see here a representation of the different kinds of torture methods that the regime did. There was injection, electrocution, dismemberment, pulling of the nails, arbitrary arrests, cigarette butts, rape and harassment, sexual harassment, and infamous Russian roulette. Because also this period that there was a really strong mounting resistance, not only in the countryside, but now it has gravitated into the city. And one of the most open defiance was in 1978 during the Batasan elections, in which Ninoy Aquino, together with several senators, former senators of the Republic, very important opposition leaders, formed the Laban ng Bayan, a party in which they challenged in the Marcos regime by fielding candidates during Congress. And it also, during that time, a popular TV show among the youth that I've abused, in which to somehow deliver the story of the Marcoses together with the this particular Japanese anime, Voltes 5. It came out in 1978, but in 1979 it was banned. Supposedly because somehow the last 4 episodes told about overturning or deposing a ruthless emperor. And some say that they were quite afraid of it giving some really bad ideas among the youth. And all these particular movement culminated in 1983 when Ninoy Aquino decided to come back home and he was assassinated on the tarmac of the Manila International Airport. And what's written here is the Filipino is worth dying for is one of his famous words. It started the yellow movement because someone tied yellow ribbons upon the return of Ninoy Aquino, and that somehow got, as it became the rallying point, the rallying symbol for the resistance. This was also where you have seen a very strong surge in the rise of the middle class Filipino against Ferdinand Marcos. So we continued, we have all the explanations here per panel, and we have one of the cartoons that Kevin Raymundo created, in which was supposed to represent how we started out with this particular idea. Kevin is a very popular figure in Philippine comics and cartoons in the country. It has been very challenging, especially during the time of Rodrigo Duterte. And the way that we did this mural is that I created the backdrop, historical backdrop, and Kevin would create some of the cartoons that would be more editorial about commenting on this particular historical backdrop. And you can see here, this is a period between 1986 1991. And this is a representation of Eulogio Javier. He was one of those local politicians in the Visayas. He happens to embrace the ballot box and tried to protect it during the snap elections of 1986. He was killed by one of the staunch supporters of Ferdinand Marcos. And of course, that series of events when Fidel Ramos and Juan Ponce and Lilia defected to the opposition. They rallied, and Cardinal Sin rallied the people to be in EDSA. We started the EDSA UNO, or the EDSA People Powers Revolution, which seated, which gave which kicked out the Marcoses of the Philippines, and eventually put into power Corazon Aquino, the widow of Ninoy Aquino. And this particular administration was not a working report. Corazon Aquino had to confront making accountable hundreds of politicians who have contributed to the decay and ruin of the country. And during this particular period, he was challenged by several coup d'etat attempts. No? Four very serious one named God Save the Queen, in which it nearly toppled her government. But the United States made persuasion flights in order to somehow give and deliver that they are supporting President Corazon Aquino. It was also one of the saddest moments in the presidency of Aquino, is that when farmers came to Malacanang, it happens that the Marines and not riot police were there to protect the palace. And what happened was that when they came near to the palace, a rain of bullets killed, and what was known to be the Menjola massacre that happened within that particular period. In 1991, one of the strongest recorded earthquake happened in northern Luzon. And this particular earthquake devastated much of central Luzon, and many were killed. And after a year, during the period that the country has decided to not renew the basis agreement, the United States had to leave the Philippines and its U.S. bases. It also happens to be the time when Mount Pinatubo erupted during this particular period. It devastated what was already a devastated central Luzon, further with Lahar flow and the volcanic eruption. After Corazon Aquino, Fidel Ramos was elected, and during his term, that one of the capital punishment was then paid by lethal injection. Leo Chagaray was one of those who were given the death sentences, and he was the first and the last during his particular period that was given the death penalty. Did not continue because of very strong clamor against it, because many Filipinos believe that the death penalty only favors the rich and not the poor. And since many have not yet been made accountable during the Marcos regime, this very unpopular move by Fidel Ramos did not gain the support of the public and some legislators, so it was put on hold. It was also that period that they strengthened civilian militia in the countryside, known as the Civilian Armed Forces Geographic Unit, or CAFUs. And it continued to somehow suppress the freedom of movement, of expression, of ideas, of people in the countryside, particularly the Numan community. It was also during this particular period that we celebrated, the country celebrated the centennial of the Philippine independence against Spain. In 2000, around that particular period, Joseph Estrada, a popular actor, action star, was elected as president of the Republic. But his administration would be short-lived, only 3 years, because of massive corruption, and having issues with regards to concerns of gambling. Then what happened was that he was thrown out from office when EDSA DOS happened. Again, on the streets, where people took to the streets and eventually deposed Joseph Estrada, in which his vice president, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, the daughter of Estrada Macapagal, was elected by Marcos on his second term attempt, became president of the Republic, and she became president for 9 years. It was also characterized by the shift of the superpower support of the Philippines from the United States, and more gearing towards China at that particular period. You would also see that during this period, there there was also an attempt to take Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo out from power, and this was the short-lived EDSA So during this particular period, there was a massacre of certain farmers, several farmers, the Hacienda Luisita, and one of the greatest one-single-day attack on journalists in which they were killed. All 48 of them. It was 58 civilians, what was known as the Maguindanao Massacre. After the term of Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo, again, another child of a former president of Corazon Aquino and his father, Noynoy Aquino. Noynoy Aquino was voted into power in 2010. And what happened was that this is symbolism of Bernardo Parque, a particular mythological figure in the Philippines in which he is holding two cliffs in which prevents him from collapsing. Basically, it's something like Atlas or Sisyphus, continuously in labor of trying to push a rock up a mountain. In this case, it's trying to hold the mountain from collapsing. He's seen here as, he has this hero persona. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to do much because what happened was that when he came into power, all the traditional politicians, just shifted their alignment and joined his government. And this was also the particular period in which the controversial SAF 44 operation against terrorist groups, 44 special action forces of the Philippines died in a poorly planned operation. So we now come to the very last part of the mural, in which we will see the rise of the populist President Rodrigo Duterte. It is believed that during his particular reign of terror through the drug war, he has killed around, unofficially, but based on accounts by NGOs, rights groups, and foreign observers, that the figure is around 20 to 30,000 killed during the drug war. And this also happened to be the period in which the pandemic started, and it was the government's chance to flex their authoritarian policies under the guise of containing medical emergency. Rodrigo Duterte was an openly misogynist and bigoted individual. He does not respect any institution. It was quite brash in his conduct as a president. And there was one of those famous scenes in which he would forcibly kiss females during particular gatherings. And at the same time, he continued to target not only drug addicts but perceived enemy of the states by red tagging. I myself was red tagged during this particular reign, and the other artist, Kevin Raymundo, was also red tagged during that particular period. And it is also within the pandemic that Kevin created this very iconic symbol, which became part of a movement, the Tuminding movement, in which crowd created their own versions of this, and eventually it just caught on fire, and it just fired up an entire young segment of the population into the cause, into the movement against the bloody reign of Rodrigo Duterte. You would see here a representation of all his victims' feet, red tag, both those who were accused of being drug addicts and enemies of the state. It was unfortunate that also during that particular midway to his term, there were 53 known documentation of young people being killed, not only in the crossfire, but being targets because during that particular reign, and I want to put some stress on that, no? Rodrigo Duterte put a bounty, no? For every drug addict. There was a quota in the police force, no? In the military. You pay around 200, it started with around $200 to $300 per head. And if they cannot identify a drug addict, they would just pick anyone else. And one of those was what he said, kaya ang pagnamataya ay tama na po, bites po bukas, which literally means that please stop, I have a test tomorrow. It's a celebrated case in which a young man, a young boy, no, was just in front of their sari-sari store. Then the police raided the community. They cannot find the drug addicts. They dragged this boy out from his house, pulled him towards a dark area of their community, and gunned him to death in cold blood. And the police was denying. They said that this boy carried a gun and exchanged fire. But unfortunately, it was caught on the camera, on the CCTV camera. And so this angered the nation. This was one of the cases, no? Because as a very strong evidence that was filed in the International Court of a criminal court, in which Rodrigo Duterte is now standing trial. And so the killings continued until we saw the steady rise of his vice president, Leni Robredo. Leni Robredo was a disenfranchised vice president during the Rodrigo Duterte. She was given roles in government only to be taken out after a month or two because she would effectively create, do her job properly. So in the election of 2022, when Bongbong Marcos, now the son of Ferdinand Marcos, tried to run for the presidency with Sara Duterte, the daughter of Rodrigo Duterte, as vice president. The popular clamor led for Leni Robredo to run for the presidency, and it started a wave of support. They call it the pink movement to a certain degree. It just mobilized the youth during that particular period into a series of really big rallies in which warm bodies, actual people coming out to the street in support of her presidency, the millions. And the election happened with a backdrop of young people getting involved for the first time voters. This was one of the highest rate of young voters ever in our history who registered and voted for this particular election. But unfortunately, it was Bongbong Marcos and the vice president Sara Duterte who won. But under very questionable circumstances, because 20 million votes came in on the first hour of the election, which was highly improbable. It was highly impossible given that the Philippines has one of the slowest internet service in the region. And also that there were still votes being counted in the provinces. So, and all these votes came from one IP address. And this is now being questioned in the Supreme Court. But there is a mounting clamor for more clearance, stronger investigation of the election. But what happened was that, after a year and a half of the Duterte, of the Marcos and Duterte administration, nothing has been happening in the country. There's the continuation of the displacement of our minority groups continues. China flexing its muscle in the West Philippine Sea, unchallenged, unlike in the period of Noynoy Aquino, where we won the arbitrary ruling by UNCLOS regarding our claim for economic rights within the Philippine Sea. Under Duterte, he was considered as a China lackey. He collaborated with them. Chinese gambling and businesses flourished in the country. unchecked, unfortunately. And when other Asian neighbors such as Indonesia, Vietnam were challenging the claims of China in the West Philippine Sea, the country did nothing, even though it was. So now, Rodrigo Duterte is trying to flex his muscle again within Philippine politics. But he has his case in the International Criminal Court is still ongoing. Robredo continues to be a democracy icon for the Philippines. She continues to lead foundations right now. She is still being attacked, despite being a civilian, with no government post. So this particular mural traces 75 years of the story of the Philippines with regards to the Declaration of Human Rights. It also illustrates how there were several very, very closely related to each other, several challenges to our democracy. So if you would see, it's a colorful mural, eye candy, but it holds very dark histories, painful histories for that matter. Maybe what we try to do is that we wanted to present how colorful Philippine history is, with all the military, with all the dictator, with all the policies, with all the challenges to its democracy. But despite that, there are places in which the people have resisted in several occasions. They may have failed, but they continue to resist these challenges and continue to do so to this very day. So this is a trip to heaven, Hello Winds. This is the 100-foot mural created by yours truly, Toym, Imao. I am a professor at the UP College of Fine Arts at the University of the Philippines. And my collaborator for this particular mural is Raymundo, a celebrated cartoonist and comic artist in the Philippines, who is also known as Tarantadong. Thank you.